Hey everybody, happy Friday. Thanks for joining us for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. It's me, JJ with ASUS, and excited to go ahead and jump into another PCDIY live stream. We're going to be talking about quite a number of different things in today's live stream. Most of the focus actually is going to be with the essentially kind of the relaunch again 2022, excuse me, in 2022 of the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, which is a great way that we get to be able to show off the amazing builds that you guys in the community submit over for us to be able to feature here on the live stream. So again, whether it's a first time build, whether it's a course air cooled, water cooled, mini ITX to ATX, it doesn't matter. We love checking out your guys' builds. And if you're interested, all you need to do is essentially just check out our ASUS PCDIY Facebook group, click on the submission link that we have there in the featured announcements, and you can go ahead and drop your build to be able to be featured on the stream. So I don't remember exactly the total number of builds that we've got to be able to check out. I think probably at least we're going to be probably checking out probably somewhere between about maybe 5 to 9, if maybe not a little bit more if time allows for, as we don't have too many new announcements as in the last couple of weeks. If you guys have been checking out the PCDIY live streams, you've seen that we've had a huge number of announcements from CES 2022, where we recapped the entire range of ROG hardware announcements in one stream. And then in the following stream, we covered essentially all of the other ASUS component-based announcements. So there was a lot of products, probably I think altogether maybe close to maybe 25 product announcements. So there was a lot that was there, along with, of course, the slew of hardware that we normally come out with. But all the way around, it's been great to be able to go ahead and kick off 2022 with so many cool product announcements. Hey, Erica, thanks for joining us. Thanks for letting me know the audio is good. Sneff, happy to have you here. Michael, happy to have you here, and happy to have you here early. So fantastic. Hey, GDE, fantastic to have you from essentially in Canada. Hopefully you are going to be staying fairly warm and staying safe and staying healthy. Let's see, Gerald, thanks for joining us here on the stream. Raid, also thank you for joining us so much for the stream as well. So let's go ahead and get ready to kick things off here. Let me go ahead and bring up my show notes, and we'll get ready to go ahead and jump into this. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, whatever it might be, feel free to go ahead and drop them into the chat. I'll do my best to go ahead and catch those as they come in, related to pretty much PCDIY in general, whether you're talking about kind of tips, tricks, insights, product announcements, anything related to the kind of the ASUS component ecosystem, feel free. For those of you that are joining us the stream for the first time, this is our PCDIY hardware-based live stream for the ASUS component family series of products. So if you're asking about anything on the ASUS system side of the fence, whether that might be things like our laptops or desktops, which are system-based products, that is not going to be covered here in this stream. But rest assured, in 2022, in the not too distant future, we will have a supplemental stream that will be kind of supplementing the ROG Pulse series that we also have, which covers a lot of the ROG hardware, including system related product. But moving forward, we'll have a dedicated systems live stream, which will dive into covering all the really awesome stuff that we're doing on the system side of the fence. So if you're interested in that, make sure to just keep tuned to the social media channels so that you can find out about the latest and greatest on both sides of ASUS's fence, whether you're talking about the PC DIY side or the system related side. All right. So let me go ahead and get ready to check things out here, and we'll get ready to jump into things. Let me see. Alex, looks like you might have a question. Yeah, so Alex is asking actually about Hero availability. So in terms of the Maximus Z690 Hero, we still have a little bit of time. We've already been working with our headquarters production facility to be able to ramp up essentially a replenishment of new inventory. And that will be coming in the not too distant future. Right now, I still don't have a specific concrete timeline, as we are still coordinating with our service and support team to be able to make sure that we get all of our customers that were affected covered in terms of that. And of course, you still have the entire range of other ASUS Z690 series motherboards, because none of those were affected. So you can definitely check out any one of the other boards, like the Rg Strix Z690-E, the -F, the -A, Tough Gaming Series, ProArt Series, or any of the other ROG Maximus. So that could be the Extreme, the Formula, the Apex, any one of those other fantastic boards. But if you're focused on the Hero, don't worry, we are going to have you covered in the not too distant future. And if you're not, just make sure to join us in the PCDIY Facebook group, and I will definitely make sure to give an announcement as soon as we have started to push those boards back out in terms of availability. So hopefully that gets you covered there. All right. Let me go ahead and see here. Any other quick questions there? Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and first just talk a little bit about some of the general ASUS UEFI BIOS announcements. So normally in the PCDIY group, I do post UEFI BIOS releases on generally on Friday. We have been changing things up internally a little bit in terms of some of our release cycle. So it doesn't necessarily always align now to occur on Friday. I did receive essentially the update notice though, which had the consolidated set of boards. I think altogether this was somewhere, I think 15 approximately boards, but none of them are going to be generally in the boards that the majority of, I think, those of you in the enthusiast community are interested in. We had a little bit of mixture, some H series, some B series, and I think a couple of Z series boards, but nothing that I would be, I think, overtly kind of interest for the majority of you. I will still go ahead and post the announcement a little bit later today. So if you are interested, you can go ahead and make sure to check out the group. Let me go ahead and check, link the group there in the chat if anybody is interested. All right, so I will go ahead and link that there in the chat, and you'll see that under the featured announcement post. It also includes a lot of information that if you're not necessarily as kind of knowledgeable regarding, when to update your UEFI, if there's kind of anything to keep in mind, don't worry. That post will give you all the specific details on when you might want to update the UEFI, how to update the UEFI, and a lot of other questions are answered there. So make sure to check that out if you have any questions. All right. All right, we've got a couple of availability and kind of release updates. I know for some products that have been of interest for quite a number of people. First one is going to be one of the products that has been super popular, and that's this guy right here, which is the Ryogen 2. A lot of people have been wondering, when is this guy going to be back in stock? And let me see if I can bring up the link right now on Newegg. But we have already been working to essentially get this model shipped back out in terms of distribution and back in terms of overall channel availability. Over the next kind of week or two, you'll continue to see this improve as you see more and more e-tailers and retailers essentially go through their logistics systems and get everything kind of listed or essentially designated in stock. So it should be essentially, I think, already on here. Yep. It is currently right now available on Newegg. So if you are interested in picking up the Ryogen 2, they currently do have the 360 model that is available. So I will go ahead and link that in the chat. If anybody is kind of just wondering about kind of the coolers that we have, let me go ahead and just show this to you guys. We do have kind of a recent lineup that we launched, towards the end of last year, what we call our essentially Series 2 of coolers. This includes not only the Ryogen 2, but also the Strix Lc2 series, and then also the Tough Gaming LC ARGB edition. So these are essentially our new coolers. They all do feature the socket 1700 bracket included inside the box, so you don't actually have to worry about ordering one from us or getting a bracket. So if you're going to be building a 12th gen system, the bracket is included for the Ryogen 2, as well as for the Strix LC2 series or the Tough Gaming LC ARGB. All three of those come included with the bracket inside the box. The actual Strix Lc2 is also right now available on Newegg. So if anybody has been interested in picking up a new cooler, you're going to be covered with this. And for some of those that you might still be wondering about, hey, when are we going to see the ARGB edition of the Ryogen 2? That'll be coming a little bit later on, and we'll make sure to give you guys an announcement once that model has been released. It's essentially going to be the same exact model that we have right now in terms of the Ryogen 2, but instead of the Noctua IPPC fans that come included, it will come with the RGB based fans, which you see on the Strix LC series. Okay. And then in addition to that, we also will be having a ROG Strix Lc2 in white. So I know that for some of you out there that have been wondering about, hey, is there going to be an updated version of your LC series in white? We will have an Lc2 version that will also be coming in white, but that'll probably be coming a little bit later on as we get probably closer towards the end of Q1 timeframe. Okay, so that gives us a quick recap in that regard. So I have gone ahead and dropped the link there in the chat there for the Ryogen 2, and let me see if I can drop the link there for the LC2, and I will double check and see if also anybody has any questions right there. Yep, it looks like, yep. Also, the LC2 is also already online there. Yeah, definitely D3D74. It's a very cool cooler. JDE, I definitely agree with you as well. It's a great looking cooler. And, some of the cool things here, this is pretty much still the biggest display you can get right now in the market. It's a 3.5 inch base display. It can actually be oriented vertically or horizontally. So this is a magnetic cover, so you can remove it and you can adjust it. And it also, of course, does include the integrated VRM assist fan, which is what you saw in that little kind of promotional video, along with the ARGB controller. It also does come included with a 1-year licensed version of ADA64. So you can either use ADA64 to put the stat panels, or you can use the Armory Crate software, kind of either or in terms of which one you would prefer. Hi, Richard. Happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us here on the stream. Hey, Raid, what's the difference between RGB and ARGB? So ARGB, you can kind of see it right here with ARGB. You'll see multiple LEDs with multiple colors, essentially allowing you to have individual LED control. So you have more like a gradient. So it looks a bit more dynamic. With just traditional RGB, which would be for our older series of coolers, which are essentially going to be a 4-pin RGB connection as opposed to the 3-pin, which is digital. That's the easiest way to kind of know the differences. 3-pin is going to be digital ARGB, and 4-pin is going to be the older standard RGB. You only have essentially one single fixed color. So this would essentially just be red or blue or purple or whatever the color is. Now you could still cycle, you could still kind of have a rainbow effect, but you wouldn't see it across all the LEDs at the same time. It would essentially kind of shift from one color into another color. Okay, so that is the difference in that regard. Yes, it is LC2, not LN. Although, you know, definitely we've got a lot of people that like to do LN-based, liquid nitrogen-based overclocking with some of our overclocking-centric baseboards. Hey, happy to have you here on the stream. Thank you so much. All right, so with that availability update, we also have one other pretty cool update. Let me go ahead and queue up, I think, the pretty sweet video that we've got for this guy too. And this one actually comes pretty quick off of an announcement that we had for CES, and I'm super excited about it because sometimes I know that definitely when it comes to some of our product announcements, things can take sometimes a little bit longer, but that's going to be for the Flare 2 Animate keyboard. So this is definitely, I think, one of the coolest keyboards that is literally out on the market right now that is going to be coming out, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be interested in it. So let me go ahead and give you guys the update on terms of what we have here for the Flare 2. So this is going to be kind of one of our, I'm not going to say necessarily a flagship, but it's definitely going to be one of our highest end keyboards. So they're kind of along the lines of what we have with the Claymore 2. And really the cool thing you see here outside of the really cool RGB lighting, the 8,000 hertz polling that you're going to see there, the USB pass-through is going to be, you know, the tactile keys that you have there. You're also going to have this integration of foam dampening to be able to kind of reduce pinging. The improved stabilizer-based design, the ROG NX switches, and then the really cool element that you're going to see right here, which is going to be that this is going to be our first keyboard that supports a swappable switch-based design. So very similar to kind of the DIY experience that we've been offering within our mice, which gives you the flexibility of customizing the actual micro switches so that you can have a different type of tactile experience, a different type of feel. If you don't want to go inherently with the very high performing and nice quality switches that we're going to be shipping the keyboard with in terms of the ROG NX switches, you're going to be able to customize it and put in your own switch. So, you know, if you guys kind of want to see, if you've never seen them here, I can kind of show you. Let me just see if I can pull this in here. You guys will see right here, we've got quite a number of different switches. So these are all essentially kind of just different types of, you know, switches that you would be able to replace on the keyboard. So you got everything from kind of your linears, boxes, tactile based switches, right? You've got, this is another tactiles. These are browns. Of course, you've got classic reds that are linears. Of course, you have your clicky blues if you're somebody that really likes clicky blues, but there's a lot of different types of switches, right? And ultimately what the Flare 2 is going to give you the flexibility is that you can go in and you could swap those out. Interesting, you could even do kind of really interesting things if you wanted to, where you could have maybe certain switches in certain portions of the keyboard. I've actually tried that out to, like, say maybe your primary alphabet. For the letters, maybe you'll actually have those be very smooth linears, right? But then maybe as you get into certain function keys, maybe you would want those to be more tactile so that when you actually are maybe actuating, let's say the volume, right? Or you're actuating against maybe the arrow keys or maybe a certain button that you want to have a little bit more kind of feel. You could go ahead and do that. And that makes things really interesting because traditionally, of course, all the switches on the keyboard are going to be the same exact switches, but you have the flexibility to kind of play around with that and see if there's a different preference to you. But the ROG NX switches that we do utilize, they're actually the same switches that are right here on this ROG Strix Scope Moonlight White TKL keyboard. They're very nice. So The first availability for that is we're going to be looking to hopefully get that into distribution towards the very end of the month, probably as we move into February. And it will be initially an exclusive on the ASUS store. So that means you're not going to see this initially on like Amazon or Newegg or some of our e-tailers. It's going to be first a limited availability on just the ASUS store. So that will be the Flare 2 Animate. Now, the non-animate model, which you guys might have seen in the video, that model will be coming a bit later on, so it won't be launched at the same time as the animate. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Hey David, happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us here for the stream. Hey Leo, if you're interested in submitting your PC build, I dropped the link in there a little bit earlier. If you look through the comments for the ASUS PCDIY group, if you drop into the group, you'll see that there's an actual link under the featured announcements that will take you to a submission form for a Google form, and you can share your build there that way. So it's very easy to go ahead and share your PC build. Yeah, definitely. You know, I don't think it's not necessarily, I'd say, a mainstream item for most users. It's very similar, kind of like with mice, where we do offer the ability that you can customize the switches on your mouse. Most users don't do that, right? But I would say that, you know, the benefit that you have is just that you have the flexibility of kind of trying different things out, right? You can see whether you want something that might be a little bit quieter. You might have something that has a little bit kind of more bounce to it, whether it has more tactility to it. There's really quite a different number of options. And we're going to have a dedicated live stream with the Flare 2 Animate, where I'll actually go through trying out different switches. I'll let you kind of see what the process is like, and ultimately what the experience is in terms of kind of pulling out the switches, putting in switches, some things that you might want to keep in mind. So make sure to keep it tuned to the PCDIY group and to our social media channels in the not too distant future for that upcoming live stream. All right. So that is going to cover our update there for the Flare 2 Animate. And in general, just those were the main updates that I wanted to cover in terms of availability and release updates. Now, beyond that, I did also want to go ahead and give a little bit of an update towards one of the cool little boards that you see right here. This is going to be one of our B660 based motherboards. So if you guys haven't checked it out, we recently did a full AMA live stream that covered our BH and new Z series based motherboards. So if you're not aware, essentially B&H essentially is just the non-overclocking chipset for Intel for 12th gen series CPUs. So if you're looking to essentially maybe be able to build a system, you're on a little bit more of a limited budget, but you still want a solid, fast, very good quality system, B&H are great options. You still can overclock the memory. You still can actually help to even extend performance through special kind of performance tuning modes that we'll have available and that we'll actually showcase in an upcoming stream and video called ASUS Ape mode, which will help to unlock kind of the performance limits for the actual base non-overclockable series CPUs. But we've got quite a number of boards, and I've got actually 4 boards that we'll be doing a hands-on kind of overview with probably in the next week or so. So make sure to also keep it tuned. If you want to find out a bit more of not only this guy, this is going to be the B660-I. If you guys just want to get a cool little kind of close-up shot up here, let me go ahead and show it off to you. It's a beautiful looking mini ITX board. And then for some that I think we're looking for a smaller form factor build, but had maybe a little bit of a lower price point, really, really nice option, right? You know, you're still going to have very good quality thermal design. You can see very large and robust VRM heatsink that you've got right there. So you're going to have good stability under load. Even if you were to go with something like a 12900, right? You'd have no problems. You still get your ARGB headers on here. You still got multiple headers there for your chassis fans, for your AIO pump. You've got, of course, your front USB-C connector, your traditional front USB 3, SATA. You've got support for 2 M.2 based SSDs, and of course with B660, you're going to have PCI Gen 5 support, but you're also going to have PCI Gen 4 support for the M.2 SSDs. You got a big heatsink right there, and then on the rear, you've got one more slot there for another M.2 based SSD. And then even on the rear connections, you've got some nice connectivity right here on the back. You know, really covering you, I think, for most of the kind of connections that you would be looking for when we talk about I'd say modern connectivity, right? So you've got your USB Type-C, 20 gigabits, 2.5 gigabit, and then Wi-Fi 6, and including Bluetooth, and even HDMI 2.1. So really not going to be hugely like kind of cut down, except for the fact that you're just not necessarily looking at an overclock-enabled based chipset, right? But going to be, of course, a lower price point and still a very feature-rich board. So I'm going to be taking a look at that one hands-on. So that'll be the B660-I that we'll be taking a look at. We've got the B660-A, which will be the ROG Strix board, which is in white. I can show you guys that one quickly. It's a great looking board. You guys have probably already seen it if you've seen our white series motherboards. In terms of the ROG Strix-A series, it's going to look very similar. It's just going to be the B660 model, but I definitely know that there's a lot of you out there that really like the white design aesthetic. So let me see if I can get this one out here. So we'll take a look at that board, and then I think I've got one tough gaming board that I'll take a look at, and I'm also going to have a ProArt board. So we'll have kind of one of each, one of each one of the series to be able to take a look at. There's no Maximus series, of course, for B&H, but here you can see a really nice silver and white aesthetic that we've got for the ROG Strix B660-A. So that one we will take a look at in the stream as well. Make sure to kind of give you all the ins and outs in terms of the specifications. We've got the ProArt Creator. So this is going to be a really great option for those that are going to be looking for a lot of kind of connectivity and expansion support. This one I think is 3 M.2 SSDs you're going to support on here. And this one also will have dual LAN on here as well. So you're going to have a lot of connectivity in there. This, I really love the stylized aesthetic of the ProArt series. This is going to have a little bit more of a minimal kind of design aesthetic, but with some light gold accents. Really nice and clean in terms of its overall design aesthetic. It's got this little bit of a smoked I/O shroud, which looks really, really nice on here. And like I said, you've got one M.2, two M.2, and then another M.2 over here. You're still going to have actually support down here. Also is going to be, right here will be support for optionally CNVI Wi-Fi module if you did want to add Wi-Fi, as Wi-Fi won't come default on the board, but it does have a dual LAN that will be featured on this board. And you also will have support for the Thunderbolt add-in card. So you get a lot of really good connectivity. This will be with the ProArt. And I think the last board, let's see if I got it over here. Last board is going to be a micro ATX, so smaller form factor board. This will be from the Tough Gaming series. So like I said, probably next week or so, we're going to have the live stream for this. Just make sure to keep it tuned to our social media channels or the group for the announcement for this stream. And if anybody wants to see a little bit of a closer look, I guess, under the secondary cam for any one of these models, let me know and I can show them to you. But we did kind of dive into all of these models in the AMA, which is right now archived. So you can go ahead and check it out on YouTube or our Facebook. It is already up and available for you to check out. Sorry about a little bit of that, that little bit of that audio. And then there's the Tough Gaming micro ATX. All right, so that is going to give us the 4 boards right there. See if we got any questions right there before we keep going. Oh, looks like we got quite a number of questions that came up right there. How many power stages on the board? Of course, it depends on the motherboard. Realistically, it's not of any concern because when you're talking about the power stages that are on here, even if you were talking about, like, let's say, like only 8 power stages, like always, you have to look at power delivery holistically. So what we mean by power delivery is that it's not only the PCB and the power topology, the actual PWM, so the controller, the heatsink assembly, how the actual power delivery has actually been balanced in terms of how it also works along with auto rules that we define within the UEFI firmware. But the power rating requirements essentially on all the boards are going to easily exceed any type of the power draw and requirement that would be defined by the CPU, even if you were to run under extended power limits, right? So your power, the power stages that we're going to have are not going to be the limiting factor. Take for instance, like on something like this, like on the Strix board, I think this is a 14 power stages. It's really significantly more than you need. So it's really not of any concern or consequence. And definitely you'll actually see when we take a closer look in terms of not only the power componentry, but the VRM heatsink design, you're going to really be able to feel confident and comfortable that the boards are going to run stable and reliable. It's not going to be a limiting factor in any respect when it comes to the power delivery. And I would say that doesn't matter which one of the boards we're talking about, even on the micro ATX based board, for that tough gaming solution, the power delivery, you can entirely run a 12900 with extended power limits on there, and it wouldn't be a limiting factor. That's actually even the case here on this Mini ITX. So it's not of a concern. The more interesting kind of consideration is that with increasing the power limits, by default, of course, Intel is offering essentially newer coolers that are now coming with 12th gen series CPUs that are in the more entry category, right? So like the 12400. The more interesting thing is kind of whether or not now with being able to run an extended power limit to be able to get a little bit higher performance, on how much more of a cooler investment do you want to make, right? It doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be justification in jumping up to something like a 360 millimeter AIO, but it might be justified in terms of going over to a larger tower heatsink, or maybe, you know, like an entry 240 millimeter AIO cooler, like from our Tough Gaming LC series or something along those lines. So that becomes kind of interesting. Hey, yeah, JD, I'll go ahead and throw the ProArt board underneath for you. Snef, in terms of the B660-A, I think that one should be in kind of middle of February. I'll have to double check the notes there in terms of the update, but I'll have that definitely confirmed for in the stream. So I think JDE, you said you wanted to take a look at the ProArt board. So let me go ahead and get this one underneath the secondary cam, and you can take a little bit of a closer look at it here. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look right there. So there you can see it's got a very nice aesthetic right there, right? Where, like I said, you've got large, robust VRM heat sinks. These are dual contact heat sinks, so that means that they make contact not only with the power stages, but the inductors, all right? You've got right here, of course, that nice diffused kind of smoked out IO shroud, right? Which covers the not only the portion of the heatsink right here, but then also goes to the integrated IO shield, which this board has. If you tilt this, you'll also see that while they look flat, there's actually quite a bit of surface area. So there's a lot of actually fins right here to be able to really ensure that you're getting very, very good thermal dissipation performance. So you don't have to be concerned. So when it comes to the overall kind of heat dissipation characteristics, very, very good, right? And you can see right there, you've got your Type-C header. This board will also have the quick charge 4.0 technology that we had on our higher end ROG series motherboard. So supporting up to 60 watts of power through this USB-C. So that's a very cool feature if you're looking to be able to kind of connect higher power requirement devices to the front of your chassis. You've got your RGB headers that are right there. Of course, you've got, your RGB headers. You've got right there your fan headers. These are Pro Cool power connectors that are on there as well. Front USB 3, SATA. You've got then 1M.2, 2M.2, 3M.2. This is going to be for Wi-Fi if you wanted to add it. You've got your, of course, isolated crystal audio design. This also supports the Thunderbolt add-in card. You will see that this is the design right here for the quick M.2, so the Q-latch design. So it's tool-free, right? You can just drop in the M.2 SSD and lock it into place. There's no screws. And right there, see if I can show you in terms of the IO on the board. You're going to have a little bit of everything. So you got your HDMI in, DP-in, USB, more USB. You've got dual LAN right there. This also to support out-of-band management. So you have remote access level control for the board. You have your USB-C, optical audio output, and then multi-channel audio out. So a lot of connections right there. So that is the ProArt board. All right. Let me just see right there. Any other questions that we right there? That's Batman's color choice. I think it's a pretty stealthy. I do think it's a pretty good looking board. I think Batman though might probably be a little bit more in the Maximus series. I think that Maximus series is going to be closer to Batman as far as probably specifications and even the design, because the black pretty much on ROG there's no colors, right? Where on the ProArt you have a little bit of the gold. So on the the ROG boards, they're pretty much all going to be monochrome, so they're pretty much just black, and then there's sometimes a little bit of maybe some silver or some kind of chrome accents on there, but it's very, very, very clean in terms of the overall design aesthetic. it's anyway not from the BIOS. I want to power. Well, the cool thing is that if you're looking for kind of more advanced power management options, you might want to take a look. Like I said, the ProArt. The ProArt does offer out-of-band management options in terms of actually not only kind of powering off and powering on the system, but even able to do remote monitoring, right? So the reason why, though, traditionally you have to power on the system through the kind of the power and reset button is that because there is going to be a physical requirement to be able to initialize the board from the actual corresponding leads. So from the actual power and the reset leads that are on the motherboard, right? Okay. Let me just see there. Any other? Okay, so I think we are good right there. So if anybody has any other questions right there that might come up in terms of any of the B660 boards, feel free and ask. But that covers us in terms of our overall UEFI BIOS announcements, availability updates, and overall kind of general and Q&A. So without that, I think we're going to probably get ready to kick off pretty quickly here, the actual PC DIY Builders Spotlight. So let me go ahead and start to get together the images here for the PC DIY Builders Spotlight. And again, if anybody is interested, I will go ahead and drop again in the chat the link to our group. It is a fantastic community. We have now over 30,000 members. Great set of kind of individuals from first-time builders to some of the best actual modders, builders, and overclockers out there are part of our group. Amazing community. So if you're looking for kind of insights, recommendations, or just looking to be able to kind of be able to show off your build and be able to get some kind of recognition, that's also a great space for that. So we welcome all, and it's a really great community. So if you're interested in joining it, all you have to do is check out the link that we have posted right there, and you can go ahead and not only be part of this great group, but you can also go ahead and submit your build for showcase on here. So let me go ahead and start to load up some of the systems that we've got right here. I've got a pretty good mix, I think, of a range of different systems that we've got here for the PC DIY Builder Spotlight. Hey, Jurgen, if I'm saying that right, hopefully I am. Will the Ryogen 2 come out in white? As of right now, we don't have any plans for the Ryogen 2 specifically in white, but we have gotten definitely feedback. White is always a more of a challenging based, how would I say, product to design. There are specific challenges in terms of not only the yield, but also the kind of the color consistency. There's a lot of kind of real difficulties when it comes to actually producing products in white. A lot of people think that it's just very easy, that it's like, you should just make everything alternately in white, and it really isn't that simple. There are quite a number of challenges. So we actually have to be very conscientious about that. And while there is definitely, I think, a vocal set of users, and we have definitely responded to that, I actually don't think that there's any manufacturer that has a bigger white ecosystem than we do. We literally have chassis in white, we have motherboards in white, we have graphics cards in white, we have peripherals in white, we have power supplies in white. We have every single key category we have produced in white, and that in itself is a massive undertaking to be able to essentially commit effort to be able to produce. It is still a significantly smaller share of the market than the traditional kind of black and monochrome, where that's the vast majority of kind of the adoption of products. So we have to kind of balance out always producing products in relation to kind of knowing what some enthusiast communities want, but then also what we know really is where the broadest acceptance is of the market, right? An example of that is even when we released the new Maximus Z690 formula board, and we made that in white. And there was people that was like, I want still the original formula, which was in black. And so you can see that in that type of situation, it can be difficult to kind of please everybody, right? And so it is just the reality of the situation. But definitely, thanks for your feedback. Hopefully, maybe in the future, we will have the Ryogen 2 in white. In the interim, the best I can tell you right here is, let me see, I think I have an image for it. Yeah. We do have this guy, which is going to be the Rg Strix Lc2, which will be in white. And this is going to still be a fantastic cooler right here. The main difference is going to be here, the pump housing, right? So you can see the radiators in white, the fans are in white. Of course, the sheathing is all in white. The pump head is in white. And this features our NVCM finishing technology, which is actually a mix. It's like a polymer of metal and actually plastic, so it gives it almost a chrome reflectiveness that looks really, really nice. But this is a fixed screen, so essentially this is RGB, but you can't change it like you can with the Ryogen, right? So with the Ryogen, you have a customizable base display. But this will be the Strix Lc2 in white, and this will be coming out in the not too distant future. So that might be something that maybe is of interest to you if you're looking for a white cooler from ASUS. All right. So let me just see right there. Any other questions before we get ready to get into the builder spotlight? Hey, Infamous, as of right now, we don't have actually any type of queue system in place for our ASUS store. We recently overhauled our store in general, where it used to be a dedicated site, and we've now integrated that into our primary ASUS website. It is something that our kind of web management team and our eStore team is looking at in terms of implementing, but it's kind of a procedural process. There's a lot of elements in terms of implementing into kind of an e-commerce platform and system that take time. So it is something that we know that users would like to see from us, but at the same time, we also kind of coordinate and work with our channel partners. So these are going to be e-tailers. So, the best thing I can tell you is that while now we don't have that type of system in place, it is something that we are looking at potentially implementing in the future. You want to also continue to pass that feedback to wherever your kind of respective point of purchase normally is, right? Whether that's going to be an e-tailer or a retailer, to find out if they have those type of options available. Okay. Yeah, definitely. That would also go for the Thor, right? But we do have the Strix, the Strix series power supplies, which you can get in white. So even again, in the power supplies, we have made white models, right? So we do again try to offer almost every one of our product categories in a white based variant. Okay, so let's go ahead and see the very first build that we have here in the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, and I think this is going to be, Alder Lake Gundam. So let's go ahead and see what we got going on here. All right, let me go ahead and bring up his submission form. And I think this is going to be from Alberto, who's been a member of our community for some time. So let me go ahead and bring up his submission. Yeah, this is going to be from Alberto. All right, so let's take a look here at his build. So first, in terms of the setup, we can already see that he's got an ROG Swift monitor. He's got the ROG Delta in white. This actually, I believe, is the Gundam edition right here. He's also got the Gundam edition of the Helios chassis, which I love. That's a really cool chassis. I'm a little bit jealous that he has it. I would have loved to be able to get it, but it was a limited edition. He's also got, we can see the Gundam edition ROG Strix graphics card, so another limited edition product right there. Then he's got, you can see right here, he's got a Maximus Z690 series motherboard. This, I think, is actually the Apex. He's got a Thor power supply, and looks like he's also got an ROG keyboard and mouse also here in the setup. So, but we've got some more images right here. So let's see what else we've got going on. All right, there we go. We've got the black setup. So looks cool. This is kind of the interesting thing. I love this look that we have on the Helios. It's still pretty rare, where we actually have the RGB display as part of the tempered glass panel. Some people will put RGB fans in there, others will not. I actually like it without the RGB fans because I think it allows the front design to come through a little bit more bold, but there are definitely a lot of ROG Helios users that will replace the fans that come in the unit, which are black fans, and include them with RGB. And then you kind of get this dual RGB effect where you've got a little bit of the lighting pattern in the front, and then you'll also have the RGB lighting that's kind of filled in from the back. Keep in mind, for the standard Helios, this pattern looks very different. It's not Gundam. It's got like these more angular kind of what we call Mayan pattern geometric kind of patterns that are on there, right? But yeah, we can see right here, this looks like the Pugio 2. And then we've also, it looks like the RG Falchion, which is our ultra compact keyboard. It's the same one that actually I've got right here. It's our wired and wireless 60% keyboard. So that looks like his setup. It's very clean. It's well executed. His cable management's nice. I like the three colors that he's got right here in terms of the white, the blue, and the red. That's a nice touch. Then he's got the pass-through that he's routed through there. He's got the cable combs on there. Nice touch. Overall, very clean. Nothing that I'm really going to say that isn't not well done. I mean, all his cables are routed cleanly. It's all done really nicely. He's got the cool setup right there in terms of a 360 millimeter AIO. Got the little bit of RGB lighting right there. It would have been cool to be able to see the picture without the tempered side glass, so we wouldn't get as much of the glare, but I think that works. I don't even think you'd have to make this rear fan RGB. Some people might want a little bit more fill light, but sometimes I like the contrast of not making everything super bright, so I think this actually works pretty well. But if you wanted to add a little bit of lighting, you could just put a frame on this, like Phanteks makes the Halos frames, where you could just put a frame on this, still keep this black, but then you could kind of get this softer little bit of RGB lighting there for the back. Not critical, but it works well. Yep, that's the Falchion and that's the Pugio 2. And here we have it again lit up in a little bit. He's playing some God of War. This is awesome that this is finally out for the PC. I'm excited to be able to actually try this out one day. And there we can see a nice side profile shot. Overall, cool, clean, well laid out. Alberto, nice build. I like the Alder Lake Gundam vibes build that you got going on here. So overall, what do you guys think? You like Alberto's build? I think it's a nice looking build. Solid option that he's got right here in terms of his overall setup. So let's go ahead and let me see right here if I can finish taking a look through his notes. There we go. So let's look at that a little bit more there. And let's see here. So not his first build. It wasn't course sponsored. His theme was Gundam. 3 words to describe the build was powerful, ROG powered, and stylish. The name of the system is Alder Lake Gundam. He's got a 12900K in there, and it is the ROG Maximus Z690 series board. He's got a H50i Elite LCD there from Corsair. He's running 32 gigabytes of Kingston Fury Beast memory, 5200 megahertz, DDR5 based memory, an SN8 52 terabytes, another SN8 1 terabyte, an ROG Strix 3090 Gundam edition. So very rare in terms of not only being a 3090, but also the Gundam edition card there. Thor 1200 watt power supply, the Gundam edition chassis, Helios edition, the ROG Delta, the Gundam edition as well, and the keyboard, I was correct in terms of the Falchion. The mouse is also the Pugio 2, and he's also got the ROG Sheath, which is our mouse pad. It's our large kind of desk mat, and then he's got custom cables from Cable Mod there to be able to go ahead and have the kind of color scheme. Overall, price tag's pretty expensive. I can imagine that with the graphics card alone. He's looking at over 9K in terms of the actual USD. He was most proud of the cable management, which I think looks good. It's very clean. Nothing that he would change about his build. Took him about 6 months of time in terms of just getting all the hardware. Pretty much just using it for gaming as his primary focus. And his favorite aspect is kind of our unified software ecosystem. So AI Suite, Armory Crate. So overall, Alberto, thumbs up, man. Solid build there. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next build that we've got in the lineup here. All right. Amino. Oh, so this is going to be a very interesting build. I know that there was a lot of, let's say, I don't want to say controversy, but there was a lot of opinions regarding Shang's build here that we had, the Amino ROG build, when he posted this in the community. So we're going to be interesting to see what we get in terms of kind of feedback here. So let's go ahead and take a look here. He first went ahead and gave us actually some screenshots. It looks like this was for his setup that he had where he was running GPU tweak. He had his card overclocked, just showing off some of the numbers he's got right here. That's cool. Then 5.5 gigahertz through AI overclocking on his motherboard. So that's cool. He's showing us a little screenshot there for Armory Crate. So let's first start to see some of his setup right here. So we can see here he's got the Claymore 2. So that's a sweet keyboard, right? This is wired and wireless. The numpad is detachable. You got the ROG RX switches. We got the RG Spatha right there. We've got the Thetas, which are very nice high-end headphones that we have. And then we have the RG Throne right there. So, and even the batless RGB setup. So he's got a lot of RGB ROG hardware. And he's also got a Helios. And so remember, if we talked about just a little bit ago, here is an example of he actually has RGB fans that he's put behind here, right? But then you can also see it inherently has the RGB design that is part of the actual chassis itself, right? So this is, you can see kind of the options of how you would want to lay it out. He's gone ahead and put quite a number of the stickers that come with different accessories that we have right there. And so this was one of the configurations. And if I remember correctly, this was I think the final configuration that he reached. So we're going to show you some of the other images and other setups that he had when he had it kind of set up. So you can see right here, he's running the Maximus Extreme. So this is pretty much the same board that you see right here that I've got and my setup, guys. That's this board right here, but he's running that in his system. So that's pretty cool. So we can see right here, he's got the Maximus Extreme. He's got the same cooler I do, the Ryogen 2. It's in there. He's also got the DIMM.2 SSDs installed. He's got some RGB DDR5 memory. He's got those LAN streamer cables that are in there as well. He's got the Rog Strix XF 120 fans in there. And this was, I know a lot of people were wondering about his kind of configuration. He's went ahead and tested it out. He said that it did help him out in terms of kind of the thermals and some of the overclocking configurations that he was doing. So you can see right here, he's got the rad, right, for the Ryogen 2. Then he's got his fans right here. And then he's got these supplemental fans that are blowing in air here. And then he's got these other fans that are blowing in here. Now, the one thing you do have to sometimes be careful about when you do this is that this can actually cause what's called turbulence when you put fans too close together. And also when they're too close to another adjoining fan, is that actually can disrupt airflow properties. So it's important to kind of test things out, but it's running. He's gaming on this. It's fully stable. So it's, you know, at the end of the day, to each his own in terms of his setup. You can see he's got some RGB lighting right here that he's running with the LED strips. And then he's got these, of course, these kind of braces right here to be able to kind of keep the card. Now, normally in the Helios, you wouldn't really have too much sag at all because the chassis is quite rigid. But, you know, I think he just has this as a preference. So that's overall kind of the setup right there. But let's take a look at kind of some of their configurations. This was the other setup that he had, I think, originally, where I prefer not having the card vertical. I like having the card horizontal. So he changed it. You can see right here, he did go to the horizontal. And I believe he did say that he had better even temperatures when he went to the horizontal configuration versus here, the vertical setup. I know in both, he's had his Wonder Woman figure right here that he had kind of set up. You can see it a little bit different configuration here with the lighting and the strips. He's got his Delta S Animate headset, the Thor in there, and then still the Ryogen 2. So overall, pretty tricked out system. He's got RG Rapture router as well. And there you can see some kind of close-ups to the fan configurations that he's got in his whole system right there. So it's a pretty interesting mix right here. I think for me, I would probably streamline it a little bit more, you know, in terms of some of the kind of the setup overall. And personally, I prefer a diffused RGB LED strip, but I know some people actually like seeing the LEDs, right? So that is his setup here. Let me go ahead and bring up his submission form, and we'll see what we got right here. So this was not his first build. It wasn't a sponsored build. ASUS ROG full setup with yes, a full ROG setup, essentially shining with Golden Wonder Woman, which is why you see the Wonder Woman in that was kind of his theme. 3 words to describe his system was ultra performance, robust stability, and shining ARGB stuff, which I would agree. AMO ROG Extreme is kind of the name of his build. So what does he have in there in terms of hardware? It's pretty sweet. He's got a 12900K overclocked to 5.5 gigahertz, the Ryogen 2 360. He's got 16 gigabytes of 6,000 megahertz DDR5. So that's a monster DDR5 kit in there. Sweet. That's really, really quick. Really nice kit of memory. He's got the Maximus Z690 Extreme, ROG Strix 3090. He's got those LAN streamer cables. The XF120 ROG fans. That's all in the Helios. Delta S Animate, the Throne, the Claymore 2. He's got the Spotha X and the Chakram for mice. The Baltius as far as the mouse pad. He's running 4 Samsung 982 terabyte M.2 SSDs, and then also 2 Seagate 530, I think either 2 or 4 terabyte. I'm not sure as far as his notes. And then he also even has a 16 terabyte mechanical hard drive. So he's got tons of storage on this board. But that makes sense why he has the Extreme, because it's got so much M.2 SSD support. A 1200 watt Helios, and the AX11000, right? And he also has an AX82 Gundam edition. So that's in there. So very expensive system. What is he most proud of is just that he can pretty much, you know, enjoy every single game at an ultra high frame rate and have a super smooth and responsive gaming experience, right? You know, multiple hundreds of FPS right here, right? Nothing that really would be looking to change on the system. Is pretty much everything in here is just about as high end as you can get. Took him about 6 hours to be able to pull it together, but I think it probably might be a little bit more depending on the variations that he had, because like I said, he's changed the build configuration a few different times. Some of the games he's playing: Crisis, Call of Duty Vanguard, Cyberpunk, Doom, Assassin's Creed, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, God of War 4. His favorite thing overall is going to be Armory Crate, to be able to manage all the RGB lighting. So overall, pretty cool, man. Kudos on the build. Best of luck with it, man, and thanks for being part of Team RG. So that is going to be our next build here in the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So let's go ahead and take a look at our next build here. And we are going to be going into some custom water cooling. We're going to be keeping it Z690. And this is going to be a pretty sweet build. This is going to be, I believe, Arctic Research Lab. All right, so let me go ahead and get the Arctic Research Lab up right here. All right, and who's this going to be by? Let me see here. This is by Charles. Okay, I remember thinking this was a pretty cool build. Yep. All right, let's take a look here. Hey, in terms of that, we're going to be diving actually into hands-on demos, so we can actually do overclocking on pretty much all the B660 based motherboards. We'll get into more of the specifics in terms of how you can actually approach overclocking. There are going to be a few different ways, including kind of customizing the power limits through things like ASUS 8 mode, as well as how you can actually take advantage of DRAM overclocking because you have unlocked memory divider support. So you'll be able to actually find out quite a bit more about this and specific kind of the boards that we'll be kind of demoing, and we'll do a live actually overclocking overview on this in the upcoming stream. So just make sure to keep it tuned to the social media channels. All right, so Joel, if you're asking about my case, this one right here, this one is actually no longer manufactured. It's actually kind of a testbed system. It was produced by Danger Den. It was called the Torture Rack. All right, so let's see right here. This is a pretty awesome build. This is going to be a pretty high-end build, and actually just about as high-end as you can get, because it's featuring the Maximus Z690 Extreme Glacial, right? And we got a custom hardline build, and then on top of that, we've got an NVLink setup in the setup with 2 GPUs, right? So we can see that we've got a pretty high-end configuration right here that we have going on. So let's go ahead and see. We can see that we've got Rgb Memory right here. We've got the Extreme Glacial, right? We've got some really nice kind of frosted tubing right there for the hardline runs. I do like that he didn't necessarily cover the RGB logo, so he gave a little bit of breathing room right here in terms of the overall kind of look and feel. I love kind of the little bit of kind of lines where you're kind of respecting, I think, certain components and not kind of running over everything. And there's some nice curves in here that are executed cleanly and well. Some of these are tight. Like this type of bend right here, this looks deceptive. It looks easy, but pulling it off with a smooth line like this and non-shaky is actually pretty tight, especially once you start to get tighter in here. And even a bend like this, where this is not that big of a chassis in terms of how much has been put in here, but making the bend here to go in like this is actually a little bit of a harder bend as well. And even this subtle thing right here, where he could have gone with just a full standard 90, but you've got a bend and then another bend, right? So some nice touches here that I like here that just kind of show a little bit more attention to detail. So this is, of course, going to be in one of these chassis where I don't like this type of design a lot of times, because I think that they don't have a front facade. Like there's no identity to them. So it's important to try to kind of balance out when you look at them. They look best to me when you look at them from the side, right, as opposed to the front. So this is how your chassis looks best. But this still has done really good job to clean up things a lot up, so that even if you look at it from this side, it still looks cool, right? So I think it works, right? There we go with the RGB lighting, and that definitely gives the system quite of a different feel. So we can see right here with the RGB vibes, it's got a cool look to it. I mean, it's, I know rainbow's not everybody's vibe. If we go back here, this is very nice and kind of clean, classy, with just that soft kind of teal blue, right? And then the white, which is nice. But that rainbow still looks pretty sick too. So it's pretty cool. And it really shows off the lighting effect that you have here on the glacial board, right? So that looks pretty nice. And just kind of the way that this is all set up looks really, really clean as well. And here you can, of course, see with the EK active backplates in there as well, keeping everything super cool in terms of temps. Yeah, very, very cool build. Yeah, some really nice work down here too. Again, really tight bend right here. Nice job. let me go ahead and let's leave it on. I don't even know which image to leave it on. Let's leave it maybe there for right now. What do you guys think? Let's go ahead and take a look right here and take a look at his submission form, and we'll see if anybody's got any questions out there. Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate your feedback there, Phenom XE. Thank you so much. So let's see here. So yeah, this is Charles's system here. Not his first build. It wasn't a sponsored build. The name for the system is going to be the theme, is a glacier, ice, and science lab. 3 words to describe his build is powerful, chilly, and bright. The name is Arctic Research Lab. So this is going to be in an O11 XL. It is, as I noted, a Maximus Z690 Extreme Glacial board, 12900K. He's got DDR5 6000 megahertz there, G-Skill memory, the RGB version. He's got 2 ROG Strix 3090s in this system that are, of course, water cooled. 4 terabyte SaberNet Rocket Pros, along with 2 1 terabyte SaberNet Rockets. 1600 watt power supply in there. Hardware Nemesis for the 360 rad, another 360 rad, and then another 360 rad, right? So quite a bit of hardware in there. And actually, I think, yes, another 120 rad in there. So quite a number of radiators, 10 EK Vidar RGB-based fans in there. He's got the Corsair Hydro X Hardline 14 millimeter satin, which I think looks great. Those have a really, really nice look to them. They have that soft kind of satin diffused look to them. Pumps are EK Quantum. The fittings generally going to be EK. Also, that's going to be in there, but he's got a mix of some of the others that are in there as well. Overall, about 10,000 in terms of the total price point of the system. Overall, what was he most proud of that he did here? This was his first hardline build. I'll say this is really impressive for a first hardline build. When you take a look again, I think at some of these runs, right, where you've got some nice kind of, like I said, I'd say more seasoned types of approaches, right? Because a lot of times when you see people that do a run for the first time, you're going to see runs that are not going to be kind of taking a little bit more, I'd say, of an artistic approach, where you're going to have kind of a bend like this and like this, right? You're going to go for a lot more kind of perpendicular, hard, straight lines, which sometimes they can work well, but I don't always think that they look that great in terms of adding some creativity and some perspective. So in my opinion, this is quite nice for somebody's first hardline run. It's better than definitely the first time that I went. So I will definitely give credit here. I think that's quite impressive for his first time. He changed his plan about 3 times until he settled on what he had. He, went through a couple of different plans in terms of the radiator configuration, and just overall kind of pacing everything out and figuring out how to kind of get it looking. And he didn't want it to look pretty much like a lot of the O11 builds, which in itself is challenged because the O11 is used so much right now amongst builders, right? Nothing that he would really like to change about the system. He really likes the way that everything looks, but he is a big fan of the new kind of simpler and cleaner look that the EK Matrix Series 7 has. So that could be maybe something that he would be looking at in the future. It took him about 1 week of execution and 2 months of planning, right? Predominantly uses it for gaming and mining. So he likes to play Forza, Cyberpunk, Flight Sim. Or comes some of the titles, and his favorite feature is ASUS AI overclocking. Great kind of being able to really get a great experience out of the hardware that he's got here. So overall, man, Charles, kudos, thumbs up. What do you guys think? And do you guys give Charles a thumbs up? Hey, thanks for joining us all the way from Greece. Fantastic. I think right here, this is a really sweet build. I'm impressed, like, again, that this was the first time hardline based approach. And overall, I think very well done. Nice creative approach, nice color schemes. Good job, man. Thumbs up, Charles. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next build here. Next one, we've only got 1 image. Sadly, he only submitted 1 image. I usually like to see a few more images, but you know what? It's all good. We work with what we got here. So I think this is going to be Big Mac, I think is the name here for the system. So let's go ahead and take a look here at a Big Mac. All right. All right, so this is cool. I think that actually we've got another Z690 based build right here. Okay, so this is clean. This is just a nice functional build. This is definitely my type of vibe right here. Not overtly complex, clean and well laid out, good cable management, right? So we've got an ROG Strix board in there, the original Ryogen cooler, 360 with those Noctua fans. We've got an RG Strix Series graphics card in there. He's actually using the GPU brace that comes with the motherboard. So this actually comes included inside the box, right? So it's nice and clean. We have a Fractal Designs chassis in there. This is just nice, clean, and well laid out, right? This is a system where I think somebody's focused at, look, I just want something that looks cool, works well. I don't have to spend a huge amount of time and effort on it to be able to have something that looks good. It's going to perform great. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be fast. It's going to be functional. And I'm a big fan of these type of builds. So let's go ahead and just see a little bit more in terms of what some of the details are for his system right here. So go ahead and open up his submission. So this is David's build. It wasn't his first build, not a sponsored build. Does his build have a name? Keep it simple and subdued. I would agree with that. 3 words: balance, impulsive, and extravagance. So it doesn't necessarily seem extravagant, but when you talk about the hardware that in here, there's going to be some pretty high-end hardware. So I think that that does make sense in terms of extravagance. But compared to some of the other builds that we've looked at, I definitely think that it might not necessarily feel as extravagant. But I think it does its job in terms of being a high-performing system that it's clean and well done, right? Name of the system is Big Mac. Let me see right here if I can take a look at his specific hardware configuration. For his list here. Yeah, so 12900K, Ryogen 360, RG Strix Z690-E, 5600 DDR5 G-Skill memory, 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe SSD, followed by another secondary 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe SSD, and a 3080 Ti, and that's all inside of a Meshify 2. And then he's got a 1000-watt power supply in this guy. About $5,000 in terms of the total build cost. He's most proud that he was able to get things pretty much at MSRP pricing. So that was definitely a waiting game for him to be able to get everything in that regard. He would love to be able to upgrade to the Ryogen 2, but it wasn't in stock at the time. It took him about 4 hours to get everything together, and then about 10 hours in terms of kind of just fine-tuning all the software, getting everything kind of tweaked and tuned and set up. Does actually some VR gaming with Microsoft Flight Sim. Looks like some IL-2, some Elite Dangerous, Star Wars Squadron. So definitely a VR fan here. He's a big fan of the ASUS UEFI environment and the software kind of hardware controls and how it all ties together. So not only from our UEFI, but within the OS environment with things like AI Suite and Armory Crate. Overall, very cool build, man. David, thumbs up, man. Nice, solid, clean, and well executed. So gets a thumbs up for me. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next build here. All right, the next one is we got something a little bit in the kind of, I'd say mod category, right? A little bit different water cooled build. We're looking at something that's not your run of the mill kind of system right here. So let's go ahead and load this guy up. This is going to be Fangorn. So this is from Extreme Hardware, I believe. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So let me know what you guys think right here. All right. So very interesting already in terms of the kind of look and feel that we've got going on this build. So I love the green right off the bat. Green is one of my favorite colors I love to see within a build. It's fantastic. So that green and black combination, it's kind of a classic. It's kind of like red and black, or, you know, blue and black. I mean, black with any color looks fantastic because just the natural contrast, but this is pretty cool. You've got, of course, that kind of the little moss, and then you've got the wood, right? That's kind of going on here. So this is really kind of interesting, right? So let's go ahead, and you can see the beautiful detail work in here, right? That you have on the exterior, right? That's part of the chassis. That's really, really nice, right? It's cool. This is a huge amount of time and effort to be able to do something like this. And it's subtle, but it just kind of takes kind of the experiential element to the next level, right? Again, we can see more here as you kind of go in, you know, almost the black is working against you because you don't realize all the detail that's there. But look right there, look at, there's a whole face. That's awesome, right? Very, very cool. All right. We got some nice little kind of moss and kind of bark that's in there. And then, of course, we got the core of the system right here. Beautiful hardline system with the Zenith. So this is a high-end enthusiast desktop-based board, right? So we've got a very high-end base system here, right? Where you've got quad-channel memory configuration in there. Of course, you've got high-end water-cooled system to keep everything nice and cool in terms of that. And here we can see pulled back, right? Now that we can take a little bit of a closer look at actually the system here with no cooling going on. And overall, really cool vibe, right? I mean, I actually didn't even realize originally, but there's two tones here in terms of green. So he's got two loops. So that's really cool. So here we've got that brighter kind of almost UV kind of green. And then here we have kind of a more forest type of green, which is cool. So that gives you kind of two different earthy kind of vibes, which is really cool. You got the Extreme Alpha board that's in there. It's a beautiful kind of flagship level Threadripper class board that we've got in there. And then you can see it all nice lit up. And then you've got your RGB fans. I think that's really cool, right? You've got this cool kind of little just kind of like tech, but also kind of earthy mix in terms of the kind of whole system, right? So it's very cool. And I do actually like the approach here of having the split loops, right? And this is also cool in terms of the RGB lighting that's there on the pump, right? So it's a cool setup. And then we can see kind of the pulled out shot where you can see he removed the actual exterior. So if we go back, you guys can see what it looks like there originally, right? So that's with the side panel on in the system. And then we go back to here and you see the side panel off. And it still looks a little bit more normal here, except for kind of the little bit of the moss that we have all the stuff on the inside. But you can still see also the bottom there, right there with the nice little RG logo, the RGB lighting, and kind of the chrome accents that's there on the Zenith. Cool build, man. I like this. This is Fangorn is cool. Oh, and there's the master shot. So, oh, look at that there in the front. That's really cool. All right. So, what do you guys think? Thumbs up here. What are you thinking here? This is, I think, whoa. Definitely, this categorizes as definitely whoa. Yeah, I think incredible. It's really, really, really cool looking system right there. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the submission form that we've got. So this is going to be from, okay, Conrad, Rich, I would know, right? Fantastic, aka EH Gosu, right? So Extreme Hardware. Fangorn Forest from Lord of the Rings universe. So that's where the inspiration is, right? So that makes sense, right? So so anybody that's out there that's a fan of the Lord of the Rings universe, you know that now we're kind of, this is the homage is being paid, right? So a powerful workstation that was created for woodworking company. It's both a work of art kind of and to also be a functional kind of work tool and a piece of furniture in the office. So they kind of wanted to be able to have something that kind of was cool and interesting in that office environment, but of course didn't compromise on the performance and the ability to be a true productivity workstation, right? So let me see here if I can pull up the actual spec list on here. So yeah, this is Threadripper TRX 3970X, right? So that's going to be a really beefy system, right? 64 threads that it's going to be on there, right? That's running a massive memory configuration. So we've got 8x8 memory kit configuration in there. That's 3800 megahertz at CL14. So some really tight timings on there. 3090 Rg Strix card in there. And then we've got multiple high speed NVMe M.2 SSD. So we have two 1 terabyte 980 Pros, then two 500 gigabyte 980 Pros, and then one 970 Evo 2 terabyte drive, right? All with the 1600 watt power supply inside of a Ryogen Evo chassis, and then the customizations that they went ahead and added in there. Huge amount of EK hardware in there in terms of the water cooling hardware. So the water block, and of course the blocks there for the GPU. Hardware labs there for the reservoirs, noise blockers, NBE loops that we have there for pretty much the majority of the fans. Fittings are from EK, and dyes are black, green, and yellow. Interesting. Very cool. All right. So that is a pretty sweet build that we've got there. Overall total cost here, there's a lot of hardware. That CPU and the board are expensive, of course, alone. And then you have the time, effort, and labor. So very expensive system. 14K is what we're locking to, what is listed here. Most proud of the custom liquid water cooling, the wooden case, and the kind of the CPU regulation setup, right? Designed for long-term reliability, right? Nothing that they would want to change about the build. About 1 month worth of time. including all the overclocking and stability testing, which definitely for a system that's designed for productivity is important. Its primary usage is 3D modeling, visualization, rendering, and overall workstation work, while maybe doing a little bit of gaming. And overall was just super pleased with the overall quality of the board and the experience that the board afforded. So overall, very, very cool, man. Conrad, thumbs up. Some serious kind of creativity and customization. Gets a definite thumbs up from me. How can you send your setup? Just make sure to check out the link for the PCDIY group in the chat. If anybody's in the chat that's from the group, if you guys can help to just drop in maybe a link to the group, that'd be fantastic. If not, give me a second and I'll drop one in there. But you can check out our featured announcement post and you can drop a submission for your system to be featured. Okay. All right, so that is Fangorn. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next build here. All right, this is, I think we're continuing in the water cooling realm here, and we're going to take a look at, I think, Evo. I remember Evo being pretty cool, so let's go ahead and take a look here. All right, so let's take a look here at Evo. And let me bring up the submission form. This is pretty cool. Of course, we can see here we've got a non-traditional layout in terms of the overall chassis and setup. Okay, so let's see here. All right, interesting. So we looks like we're going to have a reversed orientation in this chassis. Very interesting. I'm already liking the color scheme. This is always going to be interesting on what everybody kind of thinks about here in terms of kind of what is your preference? How do you guys like reverse oriented setups? So let's go ahead and continue the journey here. Wow. So different color scheme here right off the bat. We can see that we've got a Maximus board in here. This is going to be, looks like the Apex board in there because, yeah, we've got that classic X design in there. We've got that block in there. I love that this is not hardline. I love the kind of the more fluid and curvature that you have with a traditional soft tubing. So actually, I really like this approach. I think it gives it actually a little bit more of a fluid kind of creative look to it, where it's not so rigid. This looks like here, like it looks like we've got frames that are on here. So I actually like frames. Frames give a different kind of visual aesthetic sometimes to the way that fans look as opposed to having the lights in the actual fans. So this is a really interesting approach here. There's a lot of things that are non-traditional here. So, you know, the non-traditional route of a higher end build, not going with a hard line, but going with soft tubing, then the orientation adjustment. And then we have the frames right here. Yeah, these are the Phanteks Halos frames, which are very cool. This is a sweet setup. This is definitely, I like the approach here, right? Different color scheme. Which ones do you guys like? Do you guys like the classic kind of white, or do you like the gradient, which is like, it looks like a yellow pink kind of purple? It's got a little bit kind of synthwave vibes to it. Both very, very cool. Got that beautiful block in there, right? Now, this is always going to be the challenge a little bit, is some of the readability. This looks fantastic, I think, still here. The RG sticker, I think, in the right axis gives it a nice look to it. But always the challenge is sometimes the orientation of some items in terms of how they look, right? Oh, man, that's a beautiful shot right there. Beautiful build, though. I mean, this is a fantastic... It's extremely clean. It's well executed. You know this thing is going to be built to perform, have some serious overclocking headroom, and just this is a system that I think is built like where it's like wants to look different, and it's about being fast, stable, cool, and quiet. That's what I think this system says to me. So, what do you guys think here? Hey, David, no problem. Thanks so much. Let's go ahead and take a look and see here what we've got in terms of this. So this is by Alex. Alex, of course, is a veteran when it comes to offering up some absolutely beautiful water-cooled builds. So I would expect nonetheless from him. So that's definitely why. It doesn't intentionally have a name, pretty much just some parts he threw together for a quick build. Maybe that's why he decided to do soft tubing. 3 words to describe the build: no vertical GPU. 100%. He gets my thumbs up. I'm not a fan of vertical GPUs. So I think I just like sometimes the more depth and separation that it creates. But, in some builds, it can definitely look pretty cool. And actually, we're going to see, I think, a build a little bit later on that has a vertical GPU where I think it looks fantastic. So, at the end of the day, it just comes down to kind of your preference, right? So let me see right here in terms of core hardware that we've got in this system. So yeah, 12900K. This is an Apex series board, 6,000 megahertz in terms of the G-Skill memory. He's got a 3080 Ti in there under teams of the water block. He's got two SN850 M.2 base SSDs. That's all running off of a 1,000-watt power supply in an O11 Dynamic Evo. Fans are going to be noise blockers. E-loop, the B12s, there's 6 of them. And then he is running the Halos Lux RGB fan frames. Barrows fittings in there. Looks like the block is from Bits Power for the GPU. And then he's got the Quantum right there. Quantum Kinetic FLT 360 is going to be there from EK for the pump and the reservoir combo. Hardware Labs. He's got there for the RAD. That's for both sides. Got GTS and GTX. Mayhem's fluid in terms of what he's running inside the system. And then he's got the Heat Killer Pro for the actual primary CPU block. And so he's also got some Aqua Computer supplementary hardware that's in there. And then, of course, the ZMT tubing from EK. So that is a pretty sweet system. He's got a lot of really cool things that's detailed in there that I would actually love to go be able to spend a little bit more time to read through. So I'm definitely going to check that out. But let me just see right here what else he notes. He was most proud of how easy it was to put together. He was a bit busy during the holidays, but any other time of the year, this was a couple of hours of work. He was overall really just happy with how flexible it was to be able to work within the chassis. The soft tubing, of course, made this really streamlined, simple, easy, and reliable build to be able to execute quickly. He's happy with the overall look, and he happens that JJ will be happy with the custom loop and the horizontal GPU build. So he's definitely right. He knows me very well. Anything that he would like to be able to change about the overall build, a complete bout face. So I guess he would like to actually end up pivoting to hard tubing. As much as everything ended up, there is some kind of aspects that he would be able to kind of like to be able to kind of take it to that next level and really be able to execute something that's super clean, maybe look super advanced and stylized when it comes to maybe executing with a hardline loop. And I would agree with that. I mean, I like sometimes the beauty and the fluidity that you have within kind of a soft tubing approach, but definitely when you nail the bends and you kind of do things really well laid out, that's the beauty also of a hardline. And I don't think there's a right or wrong option. Sometimes it's just the pursuit of wanting to try something different, right? And so definitely with Alex's kind of expertise and experience, I'm sure that it would look fantastic. He's also waiting for some new water cooling hardware to come out, so that might be why he's maybe kind of retrofit this a little bit later on, but not necessarily right now at this time. He's also waiting for RAM that he can further kind of help to really maximize the benefit for the Apex board. So while he's running some high-speed memory in there, definitely with a quality IMC on there, you could easily be getting into 6,400, 6,600. You could be getting even into 7,000 megahertz. It's possible, which is pretty crazy. 6 hours overall in terms of the time and effort to be able to put together the system. I would expect nonetheless from an amazing builder like him. Gaming, lots of AAA titles, racing sims, Warzone, Photoshop, some work from home stuff, and then entry-level CAD and just kind of overall general use. His favorite aspect of the system in terms of ASUS oriented design is AIOC. He was actually genuinely surprised as how good it was. He didn't have time to really kind of spend hours and hours reading or watching kind of 12th gen overclocking guides. So he was able to go ahead and easily take advantage of it, enable it, and be able to get a great overclocking experience where he had it tuned up to 5.5 gigahertz. And that accounts for the P cores and the E cores all through an optimized vid and really be able to give him a great experience. So, overall, yeah, that's very cool. And he also just likes the connectivity, the feature set, and the performance. That's a pretty big upgrade also coming over from a board where he previously was a Z370 based motherboard. So that's a pretty big upgrade, man. Fantastic build, man. Kudos. Very, very, very cool. So let's go ahead and just finish kind of going from top to bottom there. I definitely would like to see what he would do with this, with maybe some of that newer water cooling hardware and a hardline based setup. But I think it looks fantastic right now. So kudos, man. Fantastic build. Thanks for being Team ROG, and thanks for doing a horizontal mount there. Very cool. All right. So let's go ahead and go to our next build right here. This is going to be Heat Killer. All right. So all right, here we go. Let's take a look here. All right. Very, very interesting. Okay, so we've got another non-traditional kind of layout here. What do you guys think about Heat Killer and the non-traditional layout choice that we have here? So I believe, if I remember correctly, this is going to be a custom chassis in terms of the way that it was actually set up. So we can actually see here, we've got an ROG formula board, but we have non-traditional kind of orientation, right? So you can see there's the motherboard. Here's the graphics card. And then here we also have a Thor series power supply. And then we've got a really interesting kind of setup here in terms of the overall kind of layout for the hard tubing. Now, this I think is very interesting because in this type of design, I would almost say that the focus is the entirety of the system, the entire visual composition, right? Sometimes you're trying to focus in on a specific piece of hardware. And to me here, it's actually more that the hardware in itself isn't necessarily the focus. It's more having the actual system have a specific kind of visual identity that's been designed to, when you look at this, you're looking more at the entirety of the system, if that makes sense. So the way I'm looking at this, where normally I sometimes like having the hardware be a little bit more visible to show off the idea and design, I feel like this type of design, the first and foremost focus was to be able to create like a look and feel that is the sum of the parts as opposed to focusing on a specific part, right? Overall, it's very cool, though. Very cool. I love the bright green. I love the bright white right here. You still get that some of that black contrast right here that works really well. I do feel like maybe there could have been something a little bit in here, like Snef, we'll see maybe in the build that we'll have a little bit later on, did a beautiful custom insert plate that he did down here to, I think, maybe able to give a little bit of contrast, maybe even some reflectivity, where if you had like a reflective surface that played off of this, I think it would look really, really cool. But this still, I think, looks very interesting. It's dynamic and it's different, that's for sure. So here we can see, yeah, this is the enclosure when it's being developed, and he was kind of testing things out. You can see test fitting out the PSU and the layout. The one interesting thing here is that anytime you make your own chassis, something that a lot of users and modders don't necessarily think about, and I wonder how often they potentially run into issues, is you don't have any type of EMI testing. So sometimes people overlook this, but electromagnetic interference can actually present itself to where you can actually have grounding, short, instability issues. So it's always interesting when I see people create their own chassis, because a lot of times they don't have any way to test this. So it's almost just like testing it, see if everything works. And if everything works, it's great. So it's even a little bit more testament to kind of the ingenuity and kind of creativity that some modders and builders have out there. So we can see right here, kind of test fitting in the radiators, seeing that it all fits in there. And here we can see kind of one of the first initial kind of setups right here. Pretty cool. Yeah, with the hard lines and the board, the GPU, and then the power supply was all in there. Of course, doing your leak testing, making sure that it's all working, running out kind of all your things. And here, this gives you a little bit clearer perspective, right? So you can see there's the rad, there's the fans, there's the board, CPU block, GPU block. Here's your distro plate, right? And then you can see right here, the rads. And the rad configuration is pretty interesting because you can see right there, there's a rad, there's a rad, there's a rad, there's a rad. So he's got 4 rads that are all in there, right? And then you're looping that out. It's very interesting kind of setup. Oh, I think this is actually where he showed off the block, right? This was pretty cool. This massive GPU block, right? Where you can see, of course, with the active backplate, right? It's pretty wild, right? Very cool. What do you guys think about this build? I think there's a lot of work, a lot of time and effort that's been put into this. So let's go ahead and take a look right here. So this is by Hugo. Okay, not his first build, wasn't a sponsored build, self-made project right here. 3 words to describe his build: self-made passion. Name of the system was called Heat Killer. So at the heart of this right here, what do we got going on? We got a 5950X Ryzen, a 3090, of course, that's water cooled, all running on a Maximus formula, on a Crosshair formula, X570 base board, Thor 1200 watt power supply, 32 gigabytes of 4000 megahertz CL18 base memory, and then 10 Corsair QL 120 millimeter fans. Overall budget was around $4,700. He's most proud of course, the custom chassis work that he did here. Anything he would like to change, he'd like to be able to get some higher grade memory, so some CL14 based memory, maybe running at a high frequency, so some probably between 37 to 38 to 4,000 megahertz. How long did it take him to put together the system overall? 2 months worth of work. Does gaming on it, so League of Legends, World of Warcraft, looks like some Battlefield as well on the system. He's a big fan of just ASUS hardware overall and kind of the quality, the features, the functionality, and the design on the system. And overall, I think a very cool system, man. It's cool. It's different. It's a different kind of design and approach. And like I said, really for me, I think about the only thing that I would have liked to maybe seen like add is, like I said, maybe something here to give a little bit of kind of reflectivity or contrast to fill a little bit of the space. But even then, I don't necessarily know that you'd have to, right? Because the white also gives you a natural bit of kind of breathing room to kind of take in the system as well, and gives you also a little bit more reflectiveness, which can be advantageous when you want to have a kind of like a little bit more of a bright dynamic. So overall, pretty cool. Yeah, that's big credit, man, from Sniff, saying that we've got a lot of creativity and it's very well made. From definitely one of the best in the game. I take that as a very big credit, man. So Hugo, you get a thumbs up from me and from Sniff, man. Fantastic. So thanks so much for sharing your build. All right, so let's see here. I think we've got a couple more in here. I think this is going to be, let me see if I can get this up here. I don't have this build's name in yet, so give me 1 second right here. This is no name, no name for this build. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can enter one in here. I think this is Mickey. Mickey's the builder. So Mickey, we're going to put Mickey's build. All right, let's take a look here. All right. Oh, this is interesting. So we've got like a stream setup right here, guys. This is kind of pretty interesting, pretty cool. So we can see right here, we've got dual monitors, we got a switch, we've got some RG peripherals down here. So it looks like a scope TKL, and I think this should be the chakram right here. And then looks like cool. We've got a Ryogen 2 in there. We've got a Strix Series graphics card. We've got an ROG board in there. This is a cool setup. It's very interesting though. It's different. You kind of have the chassis up and above, and then you got the system down below. So it's a very interesting setup that he has here. So I'd be interested to know, is this like in an apartment? Is it in a smaller room? Kind of what's the kind of the vibe that you got going on here? But it's cool and it's clean. It's well executed. You got definitely the kind of very popular chassis right now, right? As far as this orientation and layout that a lot of people like. You can see that he's also gone ahead and put an integrated display there here in the back, which is, I think, cool because it gives you a little bit of a different kind of visual design aesthetic in there. And you can see that there is this little stat panel readout utilization here. This looks like this is probably an ADA64 readout on the panel. So that's actually pretty cool in terms of that. And so here we can see the system just by itself. No RGB lighting on, right? So I do like the fact that he didn't have it go over, right? And so you can see the RGB light bar, then he has it going above. I do think maybe it could be a little bit tighter, but it's hard, right? Because you've got these cables right here, you got these cables here. So how do you make that work to where it's not kind of eating so much into this space and kind of looking like it's popping out so much? I do think this could maybe be tightened up a little bit more. Maybe getting a little bit more revised custom length could have been maybe helpful in here. I know a lot of people like the look of a contiguous cable, but I think actually maybe going with individual might have given you maybe some more flexibility to maybe route this a little bit differently, but it doesn't look bad though. I mean, it still looks very, very clean and well done. So here we can go. But I think you can kind of see what I mean right here, where this kind of goes up so much that I do think that eats a little bit into the visual space where, maybe it would have not been bad to have it come down and swoop under, right? But then you've got your brace right here and you don't want to eat into that visual space. So it's kind of an interesting situation. What do you guys think? Would you which would you prefer? Kind of up and over or under, or what is your kind of thoughts in terms of how you would have maybe played that out, right? We can see the back. I included the back. Very nice of him to include the back. This is nice, clean, well managed. A lot of credit here. A lot of people are going to not give me their cable routing. So this is nicely clean and well done. Yeah, it's solid cable management. Makes sense. About the only thing that maybe I might have done right here, this makes sense, right? He wrapped them all up in one single cable. I sometimes like to split up my cables to make it a little bit easier to me when I'm going in and maybe accessing my components. So I know kind of which cables are going to which device, right? So I know those are going to maybe the graphics card, that's going to the motherboard, that's going to my fan controller, whatever it might be, right? So here it is lit up. Cool setup, man. That RGB vibe going on right there with the lighting. He's got those the crystal. I think the crystalline effect looks kind of cool here, right between the memory and then right here the crystalline effect that we also have here on the brace. And then you've got the RGB lighting, nice popping right here. RGB lighting popping right there. And then you've got your little bit of your rainbow vibe right there. This is a little bit more kind of synth, maybe not rainbow, but this is rainbow. So rainbow here, and then kind of synth gradient that we have on the rest of it. And then you've got the fill lighting there from there. That's cool. It's cool. It's a cool setup. What do you guys think overall? I think it's a pretty cool setup right there. Yeah, definitely. 90-degree power adapters could definitely be beneficial there. The only negative thing about sometimes using a power adapter, especially on a high power card, is that sometimes you can reduce the electrical efficiency. They can also be a little bit more prone to producing actually what are called hot spots in the terminal connections. The actual terminal connections can get sometimes hotter, and this can actually cause browning issues over sustained periods of time, especially under heavy load with the card. But if the right angle power adapter is designed really well to a very high spec, then yeah, that definitely could be an option right there. So let's go ahead and take a look right here. So let's see here what we've got from Mickey. So this is Mickey Hose. This is actually Mickey's first build, man. Kudos. Fantastic. Good job on a first build, man. Welcome to the team. Not a sponsored build, so personalized anime black and white theme. Clean, simple, and personal. No name for a system. This is running a 5900X with a Ryogen 2, Crosshair 8 Dark Hero, a Strix 3080. He's got the Trident Z Royal Elite 32 gigabytes, CL16 3600 megahertz. He's got some M.2 SSDs, a 1 terabyte and a 2 terabyte. 1200 watt power supply in there, and 9 sickle flow fans. I'm a big fan of the sickle flows. I think they're a great RGB fan for the price point. They look clean, good CFM ratings. They got a good tone to them. They're not expensive. They have daisy chain support. You can run them into the motherboards for ASUS Armory Crate sync support. Really nice, solid option. And then an 011 dynamic for the chassis. About $3,800 for the total price of the system. So it sounds like he was able to get things mostly at generally MSRP. He's most happy with the overall appearance of the system. He'd like to, I think he already did that. I would like to use the upcoming Ryogen 2, which he has in there, so he's already good to go in there. But he said that maybe he'd like to upgrade to the Thor 2, but as you can't see the Thor 2, I don't see that there's a point to upgrading it in this chassis here. About to 8 to 10 hours in terms of building, but it took him about a week in terms of kind of getting everything finalized and situated, tweaked and tuned in terms of the software. Does a lot of gaming, general use, kind of online meetings, music, YouTube, Forza, Apex Legends, does some competitive racing online as well. He loves ASUS's UEFI BIOS design and exclusive features like the dynamic OC switcher, PBO FMAX enhancer, and things along those lines. And he's a really big fan of the customization options on the Ryogen 2. Overall, Mickey, man, fantastic build, man. Thanks for being Team ROG, Team Crosshair, and kudos, man. Best of luck to your build. I think it turned out pretty well, man. Definitely, I can tell you that we're actually considering looking at this. We've actually even looked at some designs specifically for graphics cards in the future. The main issue that we have is that actually mechanical clearance, right, is just trying to account for how this plays out into being compatible with a wide range of chassis and working well. But we have looked at a couple of different terminal interface cards. We've actually even prototyped some cards that actually have dual sets of PCI connectors. So connectors that are actually on the rear of the card, and even connectors that are on the traditional right side of the card. But it requires even a more expensive kind of power topology and PCB design that can be a little bit more complicated. But we are definitely looking at aspects. I think with the kind of the continued level of connections, it becomes more interesting. The good thing though, is that with the next generation PCI Express power connector, you're going to have such a high power requirement that can be done through one cable. I think it will be easier, right? So you'll only have one thinner cable that you'll then be able to route and manage, that you could essentially have, 600 watts, right, through one cable connection. So that's where I think there's going to be some flexibility. So there's a balancing act of kind of figuring out what's going to be the right direction to kind of go in. Hey, Masar, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us here for the PCDIY stream. All right. Well, Mickey, fantastic build. A thumbs up. Anybody in the community, what do you guys think? You give Mickey a thumbs up on his first build. I think he did a great job on this build. Solid, clean, well executed, good theme, good layout. Like I said, maybe about the only thing is maybe try to play around a little bit with maybe that cable. But that's about it in my opinion. Otherwise, I think it turned out really well. All right. So, next we've got the Z11. This is the, what is this? I think this is the NPC Blue Razor. All right. All right, guys. I think we got a couple more here that I'm going to try to get through before we wrap up the stream here. So let me go ahead and get this in here. This is the NPC Blue Razor. This was a pretty sweet build in the Z11. Z11, for those of you not aware, this is the ROG chassis that we have. So this is a sweet job. This reminds me actually a lot of Snef's build. It shows off really the flexibility in the Z11, where I know a lot of people initially kind of made comments that they thought that the chassis, what's the point of having this bigger type chassis, right? Even though it's mini ITX. And really our goal and our intent was to be able to give people a different dimension, right? Still being able to go with a more compact chassis, but visually be able to see the components. The reality is so many times in a mini ITX, you just don't see any of the hardware. So the balancing act was trying to make a chassis that looked inherently different, gave you more flexibility in terms of adding more room to be able to do things like custom water cooling, be able to have larger coolers, and have visibility for things like the graphics card, for an AIO cooler, for different types of items, have a amount of front panel connectivity, which a lot of people don't actually talk about, and still actually have good thermal design because you could still orient this vertically or horizontally. So this is a very, very cool build in terms of the overall kind of design and layout and the way that it's been set up here. So you'll see here, yeah, we've got the Z11, you got all those connectors, right, for USB and then the USB Type-C, right, that's in there. This one I don't think is the one that has the OLED-based display. So this is the standard one right here. You can see that beautiful clean distro. We've got some Noctua fans. You can see you can actually have visibility there for the graphics card and the water block right there. I would have loved to see this in the horizontal orientation. Although that doesn't matter as much for when you're doing water cooling. But for some people that wonder, the horizontal orientation, which a lot of times you don't see for the Z11, is actually the best orientation for airflow. Although we've done thermal testing and analysis for both configurations, and in both you can still have an entirely usable experience, but it is actually noticeably even better when it's in horizontal mode. Very clean, beautiful photography here too. This is a great shot right here, just to be able to see you've got the board. You've got, of course, your blocks, some really nice, beautiful hardline runs in there that tie in everything. So you got your, of course, your CPU, your GPU, and then your distro, right? Very, very nicely done. And of course, this being such a tight chassis to work in still regardless is a testament of how clean this all looks, even in these tighter shots. Very, very nicely done. So big kudos, man. This is a very, very nice build within the Z11. Let's go ahead and take a look here and see if we can jump into some of the details here. This is the Z11 chassis. This is our ROG Mini ITX based chassis. So let's take a look here. This is from Duong, if I'm pronouncing your name. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly there. Wasn't his first build, not a sponsored build. His build did not have a theme, although I think it's very cohesive, right? This overall look and feel that he has with the blue, the chrome, the black, it looks fantastic. So it definitely has a visual cohesive theme. Even the touch that he did right here, where he did the Rgb memory and he kept everything else blue, that in itself, I think, is a testament to saying that you have a visual theme, right? Nguyen PC right there. Okay. So 3 words to describe the build: small, high-end, custom, blue. NPC Blue Razor, that's the name of his build. He's got a 10700K in there, and this is on a Z490-i gaming, and the GPU is an ROG Strix 3080. Around $5,000 in terms of the build. He's most proud of the NPC custom distro plate. Yeah, that's a fantastic looking distro plate. Works really, really well in this. Anything you would like to change? Maybe upgrade to a higher end set of specifications. I'm assuming maybe like the motherboard and the CPU combination, because the GPU is already very high end. Took him about a week to put together the system. He uses predominantly for design and filmmaking. He really loves the Armory Crate software for kind of monitoring RGB management and things along those lines. So yeah, this is a very cool build, man. Overall, I really like the way this turned out. It's really clean. It's executed. The lines are great. Overall, really nicely done, man. This is a great looking mini ITX based build. And again, I'd love to see what it looks like. I think these lines, if you flipped it and you rotated it, right, it would look actually pretty cool. Let me actually see. Give me 1 second here, guys, if I can rotate this pretty quick. And let me see if we could take a look at what this might look like if we rotated this build. So give you kind of perspective, right? It doesn't really work. It kind of works. There we go. So you guys can kind of see this. This is how it would look, because you can run the Z11 in the horizontal orientation. So this is how it would look horizontal, which I still think looks pretty cool, because you can kind of see the fans there, and then you see this cool distro, but you still see the actual the CPU block. You see these nice hard lines right here, and then you've got a little bit of the GPU right there, right? And then here you can see you've got all your top connectors, right? So I think it still looked pretty cool horizontally, as opposed to the vertical setup, right? Where if we go vertical, that's how it looks. But that's kind of the cool thing, is you can kind of do it either way. All right. So I think we're getting ready to wrap things up here, but I've got one more build that I wanted to be able to show. Let me see if I can get it here. Yep. So this is, of course, one that was a huge amount of design in the making. I think, of course, everybody's going to know this one when we see this one right here. This is from Jeffrey Voss, right? The desk setup, right? This was a beautiful undertaking. Fantastic right here. So let's go ahead and take a look right here at this guy. And this is the Real desk. Hopefully I'm saying that right. So let's go ahead and take a look right here. So this was all custom work right here. Everything right here. I mean, this is just crazy, the detail. Look, it's got the RGB right here in the X frame, right? Beautiful work right here that was done. And of course, the whole chassis is integrated in here. You can see all the subtle details, even things like the USB ports, the card reader, the power button, right? All the rads run in there. A nice, actually, footrest, right? Just beautiful attention to detail that's done here. And this just looks together in a beautiful system, right? But of course, it doesn't end there, because it's also what's the inside in here. Beautiful attention to detail with, look at even these nice accents right here with the wood, the combs, the colors, this kind of honey golden color. Beautiful job right here. And you can see all these beautiful runs in there. It's almost crazy, right? All this work that's on the inside, but then it also looks so beautiful on the outside. I love the way the Noctua fans, of course, complement this as well. Of course, you can see all the custom water cooling that's set up in there. Got your GPUs in there, your board, your pen holder. Got your RG board that's in there right there. You can see it's got the DIMM.2 module. It's all keeping it nice and cool. It's got Optane. I love the fact you're running Optane drives. Fantastic. You can see you've got a stat display in there as well. And there you go. You can see the kind of the setup where it's nicely illuminated. I love this kind of soft lighting right here on each side that just gives you a little bit of visibility at the system as it's mapped out, right? You've got that display, and then of course you have the larger display at play, right? So we go back all the way to the back, and there you go. The whole system, right? Beautiful work, right? I mean, it's fantastic. So let's go ahead and just run down the submission right here by Jeffrey again, the Royale desk. 3 words to describe the build: just good enough. I think a lot of us would say this is quite a bit better than just good enough. The Royale desk, I believe I'm saying that correctly there. So fully custom white oak wood and steel desk, running a Core i9 9940X at 4.5 gigahertz all cores across all that. 64 gigabytes of DDR4 running at 3200 megahertz. An ASUS 2080 graphics card overclocked. That's all running on a Rampage Extreme Omega X299 based motherboard. He's got some 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe SSDs in there for running Windows 11. Then he's also got some supplemental SSDs like a 980 M.2 1 terabyte. He's got some Optane drives that are in there, 1.6 terabyte and 1.6 terabyte PCIe and one SATA, all running off of a 1,000 watt PSU. He's got those Noctua NF-A14 fans in there, along with NF-A12 based Noctua fans. And then that's all alpha cool in terms of all the water cooled hardware that he has in there. What is he most proud of? The desk itself, which I would 100% agree. Anything that he would like to change about the build, he'd like to be able to upgrade to a higher end graphics card. So moving on from that 2080 to probably like a 30 series graphics card, or maybe something newer when it comes out. Took him about 40 to 50 hours worth of work. He predominantly does this for work. So he's got gaming, such as playing Battlefield, Grid, Far Cry, and Photoshop. He loves the Dim.2 accessory that's on the actual Extreme board. And overall, this is a stunning build. Fantastic kind of combination of form meeting function. And overall, man, hats off, man. This is a fantastic execution in terms of just fit, finish, and execution. Very, very nice. All right. So I think that wraps up everything. Let me just see if I had anything left here. Oh, nope. I did actually have one left. This is from Sneffs. Another fantastic build. Following up on the X299 from Jeffrey. Let's go with Sneff's X299 build right here. So let me go ahead and get this one loaded in here, and we'll close things out. So one of my absolute favorite builders in the game, Sneff right here. Beautiful, beautiful build. And one of my favorite chassis. It's a chassis that I ran for almost, I don't even know, maybe 7 years. TJ07 Silverstone. Absolutely stunning chassis. And this is, to me, a masterclass in fit, finish, and simplicity, and just an overall beautifully well done aesthetic. Hey, Harvey, of course you can have a shout out, man. Thanks for joining us on the stream. Thanks for joining us, and fantastic to have you here. I absolutely love this just look and feel. There's a beautiful kind of just sensibility out, letting the hardware shine, right? Letting it speak for itself, but also still having a very clear identity in terms of how the actual build was laid out. And I give a huge amount of credit to Sneff here in terms of just letting the chassis do the work, letting him really be, lend his experience and expertise, to laying this all out. But like I said, really balancing out, I think, the visual perspective of how the hardware is visible, but still adding in creative elements that, he's bringing to the table. And you'll see this as we get a little bit closer, right? Again, like I said, just beautiful, clean simplicity here, routing this down. The really nice, clean integration going from the CPU to the GPU, then running down into this custom distro plate right here is just beautifully clean, right? And all these colors all playing into each other just look fantastic. These are all just kind of subtle points that look fantastic. And it also still shows how a great builder like Sniff can take a chassis that's, literally more than a decade old and make it looking modern, fresh, dynamic, and unique, right? So beautifully done right here. Love all this. This is just, this is exactly my type of vibe right here. And a reason why I would love the horizontal as opposed to vertical. I think you would destroy some of this nice depth and contrast that you get here by doing a run like this, as opposed to if you did something kind of vertical, although this chassis wouldn't necessarily be designed for that. It's just one of the reasons why I love kind of the approach of having the depth and contrast that you have when you go with a horizontal based GPU. So you can see right here, the great thing about the TJ07 is all that under space right there for doing your reservoir and your rads and your fans, right? And hiding those so you don't see them visible. And then you can still right here, you've got your res that's just nicely cleaned in. And then of course you've got this custom plate that he's integrated in here, which you'll see that once it's illuminated, it just looks fantastic. So bam, that's it. Let's drop the mic right there. That's just such a great looking design and setup. It looks beautiful, right? where you've got that blue, the blue on the RAM, not a huge amount of lighting, but just enough. And also you can see how it takes advantage of the lighting that we put on the board where you have that perimeter. And this is where, like I said, thinking as a builder, you're letting the hardware shine, right? You're taking advantage of the design work that we put in, bringing your expertise, your kind of layout sensibility, and then having it all come together to look fantastic. So absolutely just beautiful design work that's done here. And then here you can see the RGB vibes if you wanted to go with a little bit more dynamic even lighting right here. And it looks fantastic. It looks really, really nicely done. This is beautiful work. And then, of course, just look at that. I mean, look at how clean those lines are. That cable routing. This is somebody you can see takes pride in his execution, just like what you saw with Jeffrey's build before. And this is when you talk about great builders like Snef, this is where you can really see that kind of experience, that craftsmanship, that care, the passion, the ingenuity, the creativity in the builds. Fantastic. I absolutely love this. I think it's one of my favorite builds that I've seen in quite some time. I just love the overall, the look, the layout, the sensibility of it. It's really, really, really well done. So again, hats off, Snef. Fantastic way to be able to wrap up the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. We've done quite a number of builds today, and I think we've had a huge number that have really been fantastic. So it's hard to say which is my favorite, but really a huge amount of builds that have been fantastic today. So thank you guys for submitting your guys' builds for the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. Let's go ahead and just take a quick look at his submission form right here. Overall, does it have a theme? No, he just wanted to have a very clean build. I think he nailed it on the head. Looks fantastic in terms of just being a really nice, clean, well-executed build. 3 words to describe it: clean, clean, and clean. It is a Core i9 7920 delidded with DirectI mount, running on a Rampage Extreme Omega board, 2080 Ti in there, 4x8 32GB kit, of course, our Dominator memory, 1200 watt power supply. That's all in a TJ07, which is powder coated and been modified. Multiple NVMe SSDs in there. So we got multiple 1 terabyte drives. I think there's a total of looks like 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte, 4 terabytes. 7 terabytes worth of storage in this system, custom PSCO cables, custom distro plate, custom interior panel, and then EKWE 4080XE radiator and a 2040 PE radiator. Gentle Typhoons fans, of course, gold standard in terms of their tone and their performance, outstanding choice. Noctua 92 millimeters, which is probably what he's running back here because that's one of the only things that the TJ07 shows its age in, is that these are not 120s, they're 92 millimeters. Nickel-plated torque fittings and chrome tubing, and then heat killer CPU and GPU, which look fantastic in this build, the accents in there, right? And then the heat killer D5 reservoir. And then Clockwork Industries cables, which Clockwork cherry. I mean, this absolutely top grade stuff, right? So really, really great. He's overall just proud of the clean, kind of just overall layout, the monochrome, and less RGB sometimes is better. And I would agree with him in terms of that. So overall, he just uses it for fun and for overclocking. It was a client-based build, and he's really a fan of just our Armory Crate software and the aesthetic of our boards and the features and functionality. So, Snef, man, hats off. Fantastic build. Thank you guys so much. You guys, thanks for joining us for our stream. Make sure to go ahead and check out the PCDIY group if you're interested in finding out about all the latest and greatest from ASUS, looking for some build inspirations, for some insights, for some upgrade information, whatever it might be. Feel free to tag me in there. Until next week's stream, guys, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, stay safe, and stay healthy.